Imagine building like this completely flawless rocket. I mean, the aerodynamics are perfect. The titanium hull is gleaming. The payload is totally secured.
Right, you're ready to go.
Exactly. You are ready for liftoff. But you forget to calculate the exact amount of fuel required to break through the atmosphere.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And it doesn't matter how beautiful the rocket is at that point, it's gonna crash.
It's guaranteed to crash.
And right now, like, thousands of businesses are crashing, not because they have a bad product, but because they basically run out of working capital 3 months before they can even reach profitability.
Yeah, the math was always there. They just didn't want to look at it.
Which is exactly why we are pulling apart the SCORE Houston Business Plan Guide today.
It's such a crucial document.
It really is. So our mission for this deep dive is to basically extract the unvarnished reality of starting a business. We are skipping all the motivational fluff and looking strictly at the mechanics of what makes a business actually survive.
And to do that, we really have to completely discard the traditional mental model of what a business plan even is.
Right. Because people think it's just homework.
Exactly. Most people treat it like this boring homework assignment just to appease a bank. But that's entirely wrong.
So what is it, really?
A true business plan isn't a pitch deck. It's a structural engineering blueprint. You're basically testing the load-bearing capacity of your working capital against the massive weight of your fixed expenses.
Long before you ever sign a lease.
Yes, long before you lock yourself into a 5-year commercial lease.
Okay, let's unpack this, starting with market analysis. Because before you fuel the rocket, you have to determine if anyone actually wants to travel to your destination.
You really do.
And I push back on this a lot when I talk to people, because I see so much delusion here. People point to their friends and they're like, oh, they love the idea. And they treat that as like actual market validation.
Oh, yeah. Friends and family are quite literally the worst focus group on earth.
Right, because your mom loving your cookies is like your mom saying you're handsome.
Exactly.
It's nice, but it doesn't pay the rent. So how does an entrepreneur find real data without, hiring some expensive firm?
Well, what the SCORE guide really demands is separating a vague wish from a measurable target market.
Okay, what's the difference there?
So a wish is saying something like, my target market is anyone who likes specialty cookies.
Right, which is basically everyone.
Yeah, but that is impossible to measure and impossible to target effectively. A real market profile, like an actionable one for that specialty cookie shop, looks more like this. Women aged 25 to 45, living within a 5-mile radius of the storefront, with a specific disposable income, who purchase specialty food items twice a month.
Wow. Okay, that is incredibly specific. But let's look at the mechanics of that. If I artificially narrow my target down to just like a 5-mile radius and a 20-year age bracket, aren't I choking off my revenue potential before I even open the doors?
I feels that way, sure.
Right. Like, why wouldn't I want the whole city buying my cookies?
Because you simply don't have the marketing budget to reach the whole city. If you cast a massive net, your customer acquisition cost just skyrockets. You end up spending, $10 on Facebook ads to acquire a customer who buys a $4 cookie.
Which is terrible math.
It's a quick way to go out of business. By narrowing the focus geographically and demographically, you concentrate your very limited capital.
Makes sense.
You can calculate that there are exactly, say, 12,000 women who fit that profile in your radius, and you can deploy your marketing spend surgically to reach just them.
Okay, so that makes the math work on paper, but you still need real-world behavioral data to prove they'll actually buy.
You do.
And the guide suggests this 20 phone calls rule, where you call similar businesses in non-competing cities to get free intelligence. But let's be realistic here.
Okay.
If I'm a busy bakery owner in like Raleigh, North Carolina, I'm covered in flour, I'm dealing with a broken oven, my staff is late, I'm hanging up on you.
Probably, yeah.
So how do you actually get an operator to hand over their secrets?
Well, first of all, you don't call them at 9 a.m. on a Tuesday.
Right.
You call them at like 3 p.m. on a Wednesday when the afternoon rush is over. And you heavily leverage the fact that you are a complete non-threat.
Because I'm in Houston and they're in Raleigh.
Exactly. You aren't competing for their local customers. So you lead with humility. You say, look, I'm just starting out. I really admire your operation, and I'm just trying to avoid the traps.
Flattery goes a long way.
It does. Business owners rarely get to play the wise mentor without feeling defensive about their market share. So yeah, if you call 20, maybe 15 will ignore you.
Sure.
But the 5 who actually talk to you. They will give you the most valuable data of your life. They'll tell you what their actual profit margins are, which marketing channels are total black holes, and what their seasonal dips look like.
So they basically give you the roadmap of their scars.
Exactly.
That's invaluable. But okay, once you've defined those 12,000 highly specific paying customers, you immediately face a new reality. You aren't the only one trying to capture their wallets. Which brings us to competitive analysis.
Right. And what's fascinating here is how we have to just completely kill the myth of the unicorn business.
Oh, man. The unicorn business.
You know, the idea that someone comes in and says, I've invented a completely new category. I have zero competition.
Right. Like customers are just sitting in a dark room, starving, waiting for your business to be born.
Exactly. They're currently solving their problem somehow.
Yeah.
And that current solution, whatever it is, that's your indirect competition.
Can you give me an example of that?
Sure. If you're launching like a high-end meal prep delivery service, you might look at your zip code and say, oh, there are no other meal prep services here. I have a monopoly.
Right. I'm the only one.
But you are completely ignoring the underlying job to be done. You're competing against the grocery store hot bar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. You're competing against local restaurant takeout.
Yeah.
You're competing against the friction of just cooking at home. You are fighting for the exact same dinner budget.
So if I'm not a unicorn and I have all this direct and indirect competition, how do I actually engineer a competitive advantage?
That's the million-dollar question.
Because I see so many business plans where the entire strategy is just, well, we're nicer or we have better customer service.
Oh, I hate that.
It's not a strategy. It's just a subjective feeling.
It's completely unquantifiable. Being nice doesn't scale. You need an actual, measurable, operational gap.
Okay, how do you find that?
To find it, you have to forensically examine your competitors. You don't just look at their website. You have to go in and read every single 3-star Google review they have.
Wait, why 3 stars? Why not the 1-star review?
Because 5-star reviews are just cheerleaders, and 1-star reviews are often just angry people who can't be pleased anyway.
That's fair.
But 3-star reviews, they tell you exactly where the operational friction is. It's usually something like, the food was really great, but it took 45 minutes to get my order.
Right. Good product, terrible logistics.
Precisely. So if every single competitor in your area has a complaint about turnaround time, your competitive advantage isn't that you care more.
It's speed.
Yes. Your competitive advantage is a highly optimized kitchen layout and maybe a limited menu that mathematically guarantees a 10-minute turnaround time. You build your business model directly inside the gap left by your competitors' failures.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because understanding who you are competing against naturally forces you to figure out how you stack up financially, which dictates how you set your prices. Let's talk about pricing and costing.
It's the absolute bread and butter.
Because I see a lot of new owners use what I call the charge what feels right approach, which is basically like guessing the price of a house based on the color of its front door.
It's a mathematical death sentence. You can't just look at a competitor, set your price $1 lower to steal market share, and assume it'll all work out.
Because you don't know their costs.
Exactly. You're assuming their cost structure is identical to yours, which it never is. The score guide advocates strictly for bottom-up costing.
Okay, walk me through that.
You must calculate the exact granular cost to deliver one single unit of your product. Take the catering business owner example from the guide.
Oh, this one is so common.
It really is. She priced her corporate platters at $60. Why? Because the local competitor charged $65.
Seems logical on the surface.
Sure. And her ingredients cost $30. So she looked at her spreadsheet and thought, great, I have a solid 50% gross margin.
But she's not factoring in the invisible costs, right?
Right.
Walk me through the actual plumbing of how that breaks down.
Right. On paper, $30 of profit looks fantastic. But she completely failed to quantify her direct labor and her fixed overhead.
Oh, no.
She spent 2 hours driving around sourcing the ingredients. She spent 3 hours prepping the food in a commercial kitchen that she rents. Plus, there's the delivery time, the gas, the cleanup.
It adds up fast.
So fast. When she actually divided her fixed commercial kitchen lease and her liability insurance by the number of platters she could realistically produce in a given month, she realized her true cost per platter was $58.
Wait, 58. So she was making $2 a platter.
$2. She was effectively paying herself less than minimum wage. The ingredients were priced right, but the business was priced completely wrong.
She basically built a machine that actively destroys her own wealth the harder she works.
That's exactly what it is.
So, as the expert here, how do you actually allocate something massive, like a $3,000 monthly commercial kitchen lease, down to the price of a single platter?
You have to calculate your maximum operational capacity. Let's say you can only physically produce 300 platters a month. You divide that $3,000 lease by 300.
Okay, so that's $10.
Right. That means every single platter carries a strict $10 fixed overhead burden before you even buy a single tomato. Your prices have to cover direct materials, direct labor, that fixed overhead, and still leave a meaningful net profit margin.
And if it doesn't?
If it doesn't, you don't have a business. You have a highly stressful, self-funded hobby.
Which really explains why so many small businesses are just drastically underpriced. I mean, they're terrified of that math. They're paralyzed by the fear that if they charge what the formula dictates, customers will just walk away.
And look, they will lose the bargain hunters.
Yeah.
Yes, but customers who only buy from you because you're the absolute cheapest, they will abandon you the second a cheaper option appears anyway.
That's so true.
The guide highlights this really powerful anecdote about an entrepreneur who was chronically underpricing her services just out of fear. She finally ran her capacity calculation, realized she was literally suffocating her business, and she raised her prices by 25% overnight.
And let me guess, the sky didn't fall.
She received zero pushback. Zero. Her true target market valued the operational reliability she provided, not just the price tag. She had been leaving massive amounts of margin on the table for years just simply because she let fear dictate her pricing instead of mathematics.
But here's the terrifying part of all this. Even if your per unit pricing is totally flawless and your margins are perfectly healthy, there's an inevitable time delay before that math actually works in your favor.
The gap.
Yes, the gap. Which brings us to capital requirements. Bringing back our rocket launch analogy, this is the exact phase where the fuel runs out. Why do so many smart people drastically miscalculate this wait time?
Because entrepreneurs usually only calculate the cost of building the rocket. They don't calculate the fuel to actually fly it. We really have to split capital into two distinct buckets: fixed assets and working capital.
Okay, break those down for me.
Fixed assets are the tangible one-time upfront costs. The expensive espresso machine, the initial inventory, the leasehold improvements to build out the physical storefront.
Stuff you can touch.
Right. And most people get this roughly correct because you can just get formal quotes for equipment.
It's the second bucket that kills them.
Working capital is the silent assassin. This is the cash required to bridge the gap between opening your doors and actually reaching your break-even point.
Right, keeping the lights on.
Exactly. Because the day you open, your fixed expenses hit 100%. You owe the full rent, you owe the full payroll, the full utility bill. But your revenue, it might only be at 10% of your capacity.
Walk me through the actual terrifying reality of that burn rate. Let's say I have $50,000 saved up. I spend $25,000 building out the storefront. So I have $25,000 sitting in the business checking account on opening day. I feel pretty good about myself.
Well, let's run the exact math on that. Assume your monthly operating expenses, rent, payroll, utilities, are $15,000 a month. And let's realistically project it'll take you 9 months for your customer revenue to consistently hit that $15,000 break-even mark. For those 9 months, you are burning cash every day to cover the shortfall.
So 9 months at an average shortfall. Let's say it averages out to needing $10,000 a month for my reserves, just to cover the gap while I grow.
Exactly. So 9 times 10,000, you need $90,000 in working capital just to survive the 9-month ramp up. Plus, you absolutely need a contingency buffer for emergencies. Say another 3 months of runway. That's another $45,000.
Okay, so the math dictates I need $135,000 in working capital.
Yes.
But wait, in my scenario, I only have $25,000 left in the account after the build out.
Which means by month 3, your bank account hits zero. You can't make payroll. The landlord locks the doors. The business fails.
That is brutal.
And it didn't fail because the cookie was bad or because the market didn't exist. It failed entirely because you ran out of runway before the mathematical break-even point could arrive.
This perfectly explains why commercial lenders demand such strict equity injections. I mean, proving you understand this lethal capital gap is exactly what lenders are looking for when they scrutinize your numbers.
Lenders know exactly how dangerous that gap is. This is why banks require a minimum 20% equity contribution for SBA loans. They want real skin in the game.
And they don't want you walking away when it gets hard.
Right. They aren't trying to punish the founder. They are mathematically ensuring the founder has enough personal resources committed to survive that inevitable cash flow valley.
Which brings us right to the final crucible, financial projections.
It's the fun part.
Right. So, what does this all mean for the bottom line? I have to push back here. If my business shows a clear profit on paper, shouldn't the bank be eager to hand over the money?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, you have to realize banks do not care about paper profit. They care about cash flow and they care about repayment probability.
Give me a concrete example of how a profitable business can still trap cash and go bankrupt.
Let's look at an interior design firm operating on commercial contracts. They land this massive corporate office redesign for $50,000.
Huge win.
Massive win. The materials and contractor labor will cost them $30,000.
Huh?
So on a spreadsheet, they have a highly profitable $20,000 gross margin.
Sounds great.
But the corporate client operates on net 60 payment terms.
Oh boy. So the designer has to front the money.
Exactly. The designer spends 3 months actually executing the project. During those 3 months, cash is hemorrhaging out of the business to pay for expensive textiles, custom furniture, hourly contractors.
While $0 are coming in.
None. They finally finish the installation, they submit that $50,000 invoice, and then they have to wait 2 more months for the corporate accounts payable department to actually cut the check.
So for 5 solid months, the business is bleeding cash. They're
Yeah.
paying rent, paying staff, all while holding a theoretically profitable invoice.
Precisely. The cash is trapped in accounts receivable. If that design firm doesn't have a massive working capital reserve or like a line of credit to float that 5-month gap, they miss payroll and they go bankrupt while waiting for a $50,000 check.
That is insane.
On the tax return, they look highly profitable. But in reality, they are completely illiquid.
And that is the exact blind spot the underwriter is hunting for.
Which is exactly why SBA 7A loan applications, which, by the way, can secure up to $5 million, require such rigorous documentation.
What are the specific requirements?
They generally require a minimum credit score of 680. Though 720 or higher is really the practical baseline for good terms. But more importantly, they demand month-by-month cash flow projections for 2 full years.
Wait, month by month, not just annual summaries.
Monthly. Because an annual summary hides the cash gap. An annual summary just shows the 50 grand arriving in the same year the 30 grand went out.
Right. It totally smooths over the 5 months of starvation.
Exactly. The monthly projection forces you to map out the exact week the cash leaves the account and the exact week it returns. Now, there's a crucial nuance here.
Okay.
If you are an established business with 2 to 3 years of clean, proven profitability on your tax returns, the bank can see the plumbing already works.
The cash flow cycle is already proven.
Right. That drastically de-risks the loan, and it greatly reduces the need for heavy personal collateral compared to a startup that is operating entirely on hypotheticals.
Wow. Okay, so we've run the gauntlet here. We've pressure tested the market analysis. We've quantified the competitive gap, mapped out pricing and costing, calculated the working capital, and modeled those financial projections.
We covered a lot of ground.
We did, which brings us to the ultimate reality check. Because sometimes you do all of this grueling analytical work. You look at the blueprint of your business plan and the math just unequivocally tells you, not yet, or the market is just too small.
And that is a really brutal realization for a passionate entrepreneur.
It is. But, I mean, it is the most valuable outcome possible. That isn't a failure of the entrepreneur. That is the business plan doing its exact job. It is structurally preventing you from putting a rocket on the launch pad that is mathematically guaranteed to explode.
That's the paradigm shift right there.
Okay.
A rigorous business plan grants you earned confidence. It replaces the borrowed enthusiasm of your friends with cold structural facts. When you finally sit down at the closing table for a commercial lease, you aren't guessing. You know exactly what your capacity is.
And as a practical note from the score guide, while you are building this blueprint, keep your day job. Maintaining a steady personal income removes the desperation from your decision-making.
Oh, somewhere.
It really allows you to look at the math objectively. And hey, you don't have to build the model alone. Houston has over 125 free SCORE mentors. These are former executives and operators who have navigated these exact cash flow crises. You can pull their templates and request a mentor at score.org.
Utilizing operators who have already survived the capital gap is the ultimate unfair advantage. They will spot the flaws in your assumptions immediately.
Absolutely. So we've spent this entire deep dive deconstructing how a business plan structurally engineers a successful launch. But I
Okay.
want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to chew on.
Okay, let's hear it.
We always frame business plans as the tool that builds a company. But consider this. What if the absolute greatest, most financially valuable outcome of a brilliant business plan isn't actually in launching a business at all? What if its ultimate value is giving you the irrefutable, unemotional data you need to confidently walk away from the wrong one?